I want you to imagine something with me right now. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, and the very first thought that enters your mind isn't worry. It isn't that familiar knot in your stomach about bills, about debt, about how you're going to make ends meet this month. Instead, imagine your first thought is a quiet, unshakable knowing that money flows to you easily, naturally, abundantly, like breathing, like the sun rising, like your heart beating without you having to remind it. Most people will never experience that feeling. They'll spend their entire lives trapped in a cycle of wanting, worrying, working themselves to exhaustion, and still never feeling like they have enough. But you're about to learn why 99% of people fail to manifest the wealth they desperately desire, and more importantly, you're going to discover the exact method that places you in that rare 1% who succeed. My name is Joseph Murphy, and everything I'm about to share with you has been proven not just in my own life, but in the lives of thousands of people who applied these principles and watched their financial reality transform before their very eyes. Now, I need you to understand something crucial before we go any further. This isn't about luck. This isn't about being born into the right family or having the right connections. This isn't even about working harder than everyone else, though I respect hard work deeply. What I'm going to reveal to you operates on a level most people don't even know exists. It's about understanding a fundamental truth about reality itself, a truth that once you grasp it, once you really let it sink into the deepest parts of your consciousness, you'll never see money or abundance the same way again. You'll never feel powerless again. And that changes everything. Here's what most people get catastrophically wrong about manifesting money. They treat their subconscious mind like it's some magical genie that grants wishes if you just ask nicely enough. They repeat affirmations they don't believe. They visualize mansions and luxury cars while their deeper mind is screaming that they're frauds, that they're not worthy, that money is evil or scarce or only for other people. And then they wonder why nothing changes. They wonder why the universe seems deaf to their prayers. But the universe isn't deaf. Your subconscious mind isn't broken. The problem is that 99% of people are operating with the wrong instructions entirely. They're trying to plant apple seeds in concrete and wondering why no tree grows. The method I'm going to teach you today is different. It's based on understanding how your subconscious mind actually works, not how you wish it worked or how some guru on the internet told you it works. Your subconscious mind is the most powerful force in your personal universe. It controls everything. Your beliefs, your habits, your automatic reactions, your health, your relationships, and yes, absolutely your financial circumstances. It's working right now, this very second, either for you or against you. And here's the thing that most people never realize until it's too late. Your subconscious mind doesn't judge. It doesn't care if your thoughts are positive or negative, true or false, helpful or destructive. It simply accepts what you consistently feed it and then sets about making that your reality with absolute relentless precision. So, when you consistently think thoughts of lack, when you feel the emotion of scarcity in your body, when you speak words of limitation, your subconscious mind says, "Understood. Lack is what we're creating. Let me show you more lack." It doesn't do this to punish you. It does this because it's designed to be faithful to your dominant mental patterns. It's the most loyal servant you'll ever have, and that loyalty is either your greatest asset or your greatest obstacle. Everything depends on what you're impressing upon it. Let me tell you about a woman I once worked with. We'll call her Margaret. Margaret came to me absolutely desperate. She was 53 years old, working 2 jobs, drowning in debt, and she told me with tears in her eyes that she felt like she'd failed at life. She'd tried everything. She'd worked so hard. She'd sacrificed time with her children. She'd gone without so many things. And still, money slipped through her fingers like water. The more she struggled, the worse it got. She was exhausted, defeated, ready to give up. And when she asked me what she was doing wrong, I asked her one simple question. I said, "Margaret, what do you think about money when you're alone with your thoughts? What do you feel in your body when you imagine having wealth?" She looked at me, confused at first, and then she said something that revealed everything. She said, "I feel guilty. I feel like I don't deserve it. My parents always said money doesn't grow on trees, that we have to struggle to survive, that rich people are greedy. I feel like wanting more makes me selfish." Do you see what was happening? Margaret's conscious mind wanted wealth desperately. She needed it. She prayed for it. But her subconscious mind, the part that actually creates her reality, was programmed with completely opposite beliefs. Her subconscious believed money was scarce, that she didn't deserve it, that wanting it made her a bad person. So no matter how hard Margaret worked on the conscious level, her subconscious was working even harder to keep her exactly where she was. It was protecting her from becoming what she'd been taught was a greedy, rich person. It was keeping her safe in struggle because struggle was familiar. Struggle was what her family knew. Struggle felt like home. I worked with Margaret for 3 months using the exact principles I'm going to teach you today. We didn't focus on working harder. We didn't create elaborate business plans. Instead, we focused on reprogramming her subconscious mind. We replaced those old, toxic beliefs with new truths. We impressed upon her deeper mind, again and again, that she was worthy of abundance, that money was simply energy and she could receive it easily, that being wealthy meant she could help more people, including her own family. We did this through specific practices, which I'll teach you in detail, practices that bypass the critical factor of the conscious mind and speak directly to the subconscious. And something remarkable happened. Within the first month, Margaret received an unexpected check from an old insurance policy she'd forgotten about, $2,000. In the second month, she was offered a new position at her primary job with a significant raise. She was able to quit her second job. In the third month, a friend approached her with an investment opportunity that felt right, something she never would have noticed or acted on before. Today, 3 years later, Margaret is completely debt-free, has savings for the first time in her adult life, and she tells me that the most profound change isn't even in her bank account. It's in how she feels. That constant anxiety is gone. That feeling of being behind, of never having enough, of struggling against an unfair world, it dissolved. She wakes up now with peace, with confidence, with that quiet knowing I mentioned at the beginning. Margaret's story isn't unique. I've seen this pattern repeated countless times. The external circumstances were never the real problem. The job, the economy, the bills, those were just symptoms. The real problem was always internal. It was the subconscious programming running in the background like software, creating the same results over and over again. And here's the beautiful truth that I want you to really hear. If the problem is internal, then so is the solution. You don't need external circumstances to change first. You don't need to wait for a better job or a lucky break or someone to save you. You can start right now, right where you are, with nothing but your own mind, and you can begin the process of complete financial transformation. Now, I know some of you are skeptical. You're thinking, Joseph, this sounds like positive thinking nonsense. I've tried affirmations, I've tried visualizing, nothing changed, and I hear you. I respect that skepticism because you're right to question, but let me be very clear. What I'm teaching you isn't positive thinking. Positive thinking alone is like putting a cheerful poster over a crack in the foundation of your house. It might make you feel better temporarily, but it doesn't fix the structural problem. What I'm teaching you is subconscious reprogramming. It's about going deep, to the foundational level where your beliefs about money and worthiness and possibility live, and changing those beliefs at the root. That's where real transformation happens. That's where the 99% get it wrong and the 1% get it right. The 1% understand that your outer world is always, and I mean always, a perfect reflection of your inner world. Not sometimes, not when you're being good, always. If you want to know what beliefs are running in your subconscious mind, just look around at your life. Look at your bank account. Look at your relationships. Look at your health. Your current reality is a printout of your subconscious programming. And if you don't like what you see, the answer isn't to fight harder against the external world. The answer is to change the internal program, change the blueprint, and the building changes automatically. So what I'm offering you today isn't theory. It isn't philosophy. It's a practical, step-by-step method for reprogramming your subconscious mind for wealth. And when I say wealth, I don't just mean money, though money will certainly come. I mean that deep sense of abundance, of living in a friendly universe that wants to support you, of knowing that you're worthy and capable and that opportunities are everywhere. That's real wealth. That's what changes your life. We're going to go on a journey together. I'm going to share with you stories from my own life and from the lives of people I've worked with. I'm going to break down the specific lessons you need to understand. And then, most importantly, I'm going to give you practical exercises that you can start using today. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Today. Because here's another thing the 99% get wrong. They wait. They consume information endlessly but never apply it. They're waiting for perfect conditions, for more knowledge, for permission from someone. But the 1%? They act. They experiment. They trust the process even before they see results, because they understand that faith isn't believing without evidence. Faith is trusting enough to take the first step, knowing that evidence comes after action, not before. Your subconscious mind is like soil. Whatever seeds you plant in it will grow. If you plant seeds of lack, worry, and limitation, that's what you'll harvest. If you plant seeds of abundance, trust, and possibility, that's what you'll harvest. The soil doesn't choose. It doesn't favor certain people. It's completely impartial. It simply grows what's planted. And right now, you have the opportunity to become a conscious gardener of your own mind. To stop randomly planting whatever seeds blow in from your environment, from the news, from fearful friends, from your own past conditioning, and to start deliberately planting exactly what you want to grow in your life. I promise you this, if you stay with me through this entire journey, if you really listen not just with your ears but with your whole being, if you allow these truths to penetrate past your logical mind and into that deeper place where real change happens, your relationship with money will never be the same. You'll never feel powerless again. You'll never wonder why abundance seems to come easily to others but not to you. You'll understand the game. You'll know the rules. And once you know the rules, you can't unknow them. You can only decide whether to play or not. So let's begin. Let's talk about what makes the 1% different and how you can join them, starting right now. The first thing you need to understand about manifesting large sums of money faster than 99% of people is this foundational truth. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Your subconscious mind thinks in feelings, not in words. Most people, when they try to manifest money, they focus on saying the right words. They repeat affirmations like, I am wealthy, I am abundant, but their body is tense. Their stomach is tight with fear. Their heart is closed with doubt. And they wonder why nothing changes. Let me tell you clearly, your subconscious mind doesn't hear your words. It feels your emotions. It reads your body. It knows what you truly believe, not what you're pretending to believe. This is why so many people fail at manifestation. They're trying to lie to the most sophisticated truth detector in existence, their own deeper mind. You can't fool it. If you say, I am wealthy while feeling poor, your subconscious accepts the feeling, not the words. The feeling is the real language. The feeling is what gets impressed upon that deeper level of mind. And the feeling is what becomes your reality. So the first critical shift you must make is to stop trying to trick yourself with words and start generating authentic feelings of abundance, regardless of your current circumstances. This seems impossible to most people. How can you feel abundant when your bank account says otherwise? How can you feel wealthy when bills are piling up? This is the million-dollar question, literally, and I'm going to answer it for you. You generate the feeling first by understanding that wealth is a state of consciousness, not a bank balance. You don't wait for money to feel wealthy. You practice feeling wealthy now, in this very moment, while the bank account still reads zero. Let me give you a practical example. There was a woman who came to one of my lectures years ago, a widow, raising 3 children on almost nothing. She told me, Dr. Murphy, I can't feel wealthy. I'm broke. How can I pretend otherwise? And I said to her, you're not pretending. You're recognizing a truth that already exists in the invisible realm of consciousness. Here's what I instructed her to do, and you can do this right now, today. Before sleep each night, she was to enter into a drowsy, relaxed state, that beautiful twilight zone between waking and sleeping where your subconscious mind is most impressionable. In that state, she was to imagine receiving a check for a substantial sum of money. Not just visualize it, but feel the paper in her hands, see her name written on it, feel the rush of relief and joy flooding through her body. The key wasn't the visualization itself. The key was generating the feeling of relief, the feeling of financial freedom, the feeling that her prayers had been answered. She did this faithfully for 3 weeks. And you know what happened? Her aunt, whom she barely knew, passed away and left her a considerable inheritance. Did she create her aunt's death? Of course not. But she aligned her consciousness with wealth and the universe God, infinite intelligence, whatever name you prefer, found a channel through which to deliver it. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, but that's just coincidence. And to that I say, do this experiment yourself. Practice feeling wealthy for 30 days and watch what happens. You'll be astounded at the so-called coincidences that occur. You see, there are no coincidences in a universe governed by law. There is only cause and effect, consciousness and manifestation. So how do you generate the feeling without the physical evidence? You borrow it from your imagination. Your imagination is the workshop of God within you. It's where all creation begins. Close your eyes right now and imagine opening your bank statement. What numbers would make you feel wealthy? See those numbers. Don't strain, don't force, just gently observe them in your mind's eye. Now, and this is crucial, feel what you would feel if those numbers were real. Would you feel relief, security, freedom, joy, gratitude? Amplify that feeling. Breathe into it. Let it fill every cell of your body. This feeling is the secret ingredient, the magical substance that impresses your subconscious mind. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between a real experience and one vividly imagined with feeling. It accepts what you give it and begins immediately to orchestrate circumstances, events, and people to match that inner state. This is why I cannot emphasize enough the importance of dwelling in the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Don't just visit it for a moment and then return to anxiety and doubt. Live there. Make it your mental home. When you walk through your day, carry that feeling with you like a precious treasure. I've seen people make the mistake of treating their visualization sessions like a chore, something to check off a list. They sit down, close their eyes, picture what they want for 3 minutes, and then spend the remaining 23 hours and 57 minutes of their day worrying about their current circumstances. This approach will never work. You cannot plant seeds in the morning and then pour poison on them all afternoon. Your dominant mental attitude is what shapes your life. If you spend 5 minutes feeling successful and prosperous, but then spend hours feeling anxious and defeated, which feeling do you think your subconscious mind will accept as the truth? The one you gave the most attention to? The one you felt most deeply? This is not about forcing yourself to feel something you don't. It's about gently redirecting your attention, again and again, back to the state you wish to experience. When you catch yourself dwelling on problems, you simply pause, take a breath, and return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. You don't judge yourself. You don't despair. You simply redirect. Think of it like training a puppy. The puppy wanders off, and you gently guide it back. It wanders again, and you guide it back again. You don't beat the puppy. You don't give up on the puppy. You persistently, patiently, lovingly guide it to where you want it to be. Your mind is the same. It has habits, patterns worn deep by years of thinking in certain ways. These patterns won't change overnight, but they will change with gentle, consistent redirection. I want you to understand something profound. Your subconscious mind is always listening. It never sleeps. It's always recording, always absorbing the emotional tone of your thoughts. It doesn't judge whether your thoughts are good or bad, helpful or harmful. It simply accepts them and works to make them real in your external world. This is why you must become the guardian of your inner dialogue. You must watch what you say to yourself, what you affirm to yourself, what you repeat to yourself day after day. Because your subconscious mind is listening, it's always listening, and it believes every word you tell it with feeling. When you say, "I can't afford that," your subconscious accepts it as instruction and begins arranging your life to match that statement. When you say, "I'm always sick," your subconscious works to maintain that condition. When you say, "Nothing good ever happens to me," you're programming your subconscious to filter out opportunities and focus only on disappointments. But here's the miracle. You can change the programming right now, in this very moment. You can begin speaking to your subconscious in a new language, the language of faith, abundance, and possibility. You can start affirming what you want rather than what you fear. You can redirect the incredible power of your subconscious mind toward your dreams instead of your doubts. I want you to understand something profound. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. This is not poetry. This is scientific fact. When you imagine something with emotional intensity, your subconscious mind accepts it as real and begins working to reproduce that experience in your outer world. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever had a nightmare so vivid that you woke up with your heart pounding, perhaps even sweating? Your body responded as if the danger were real. Your subconscious mind triggered all the same chemical responses, the same physiological changes, as if you were truly being chased or threatened. This same mechanism works in reverse. When you imagine success, health, prosperity, and happiness with the same vividness and emotional intensity, your subconscious mind accepts these images as real and begins aligning your thoughts, your actions, and even your external circumstances to match them. Your imagination is not idle daydreaming. It is not escapism or fantasy for its own sake. It is the most potent creative force available to you. Every great invention, every masterpiece of art, every breakthrough in science began as an image in someone's mind. The Wright brothers saw themselves flying before they ever left the ground. Edison saw the light bulb illuminating the world before the filament ever glowed. Every building you see around you existed first as a vision in an architect's imagination. But here's what most people miss. Your personal life operates by the exact same principle. The marriage you desire, the career you dream of, the health you want to reclaim, the financial freedom you seek, all of these must first become vivid, living realities in your imagination before they can manifest in your external world. Your subconscious mind does not distinguish between the blueprint and the building. When you consistently imagine something with feeling, with conviction, with sensory detail, you are giving your subconscious mind the architectural plans it needs to construct that reality. Let me share something I witnessed that demonstrates this power beyond any doubt. I once worked with a woman who came to me in desperate financial circumstances. She was drowning in debt, barely able to feed her children, living in constant fear of eviction. I taught her this principle. Every night before sleep, when her subconscious mind was most receptive, she was to imagine herself in the exact situation she desired. Not vaguely hoping for more money, but creating a specific, detailed mental scene. She chose to imagine herself opening her mailbox and finding a specific check. She saw the amount clearly. She felt the paper in her hands. She experienced the relief, the gratitude, the joy flooding through her body. She made it so real in her imagination that tears of thankfulness would stream down her face. She did this faithfully, night after night, never wavering, never doubting. Within 3 weeks, she received a phone call from a lawyer. A distant relative she barely knew had passed away and left her an inheritance the exact amount she had been imagining. Coincidence? I assure you it was not. The universe does not operate on chance. It operates on law. Universal law. The law of mind. And this woman's experience illustrates something vital about how manifestation actually works in the world of form. Notice what happened. She didn't win the lottery. No windfall from the sky. The money came through a death, through loss, through grief, through the ending of someone's life story. This is important. The subconscious mind is completely indifferent to human sentiment. It has no favorites. It doesn't care about your preferences for how your desire should manifest. Your subconscious is not Netflix. You cannot order exactly what you want, precisely how you want it delivered, wrapped in the packaging that pleases your ego. What you can do is impress your subconscious with a clear mental image of your end result, and then this is critical, then you must surrender the how to the infinite intelligence that knows pathways you cannot see. This woman wanted money, she got money, but the bridge of incidents that brought it to her involved death and inheritance. Would she have chosen this path consciously? Perhaps not. But her subconscious, working with the only materials available in her life, used this channel to fulfill her mental impression. I tell you this not to frighten you, but to awaken you to a profound truth. When you begin to work with your subconscious mind, when you truly activate the law of assumption and live from your desired end, life will rearrange itself. People will move. Circumstances will shift. Doors will open and close. Relationships will transform or dissolve. Jobs will be offered or taken away. This rearrangement is not punishment. It is not the universe testing you. It is simply the shortest path between your current reality and your impressed desire. The subconscious is supremely efficient. It will use whatever channels are available, whatever bridges exist in the invisible architecture of your life. Now, I want to address a question that arises in nearly every conversation about prayer, asterisk. How long does it take? Asterisk. You want to know when your desire will manifest. You want a timeline, a guarantee, some reassurance that your efforts are not in vain. This is natural. This is human. But it is also the very question that can undermine your entire prayer work. When you ask how long, you are operating from lack. You are measuring the distance between here and there. You are affirming the absence of your desire rather than its presence. You are, in essence, impressing upon your subconscious the very thing you wish to avoid, the belief that you do times, not times, have it yet. The correct answer is this: it takes no time at all. In the moment you successfully impress your subconscious mind, the work is done, the seed is planted. The rest is simply gestation, the natural unfolding of cause into effect. But here is what you must understand. The length of gestation depends entirely on the depth of your conviction and the degree of your acceptance. A seed planted in fertile soil, watered consistently, protected from doubt, this seed sprouts quickly. A seed planted in rocky ground, dug up daily to check its progress, exposed to the harsh winds of fear and impatience, this seed may never break through. I have seen desires manifest within hours. I have seen them take months. The difference was never in the desire itself, never in some arbitrary cosmic timetable. The difference was always in the consciousness of the person praying. One man impresses his subconscious once, deeply, with complete conviction. He feels the reality of his answered prayer so thoroughly that he never questions it again. He goes about his life in quiet confidence. His desire manifests swiftly because there is no resistance, no counter-impression, no divided mind. Another man impresses his subconscious with his desire, but then immediately begins to worry. He prays again the next day, not from faith, but from fear that the first prayer didn't take. He looks for evidence of change, and when he doesn't see it immediately, he becomes anxious. He tells himself he believes, but his emotions betray him. He is re-impressing lack with every worried thought. His desire is delayed not because prayer doesn't work, but because he is working against himself. This is why I tell you, pray once, with feeling, and let it go. Or pray repeatedly if you must, but always from the feeling of the wish fulfilled, never from the anxiety of the wish unfulfilled. Many years ago, I counseled a woman who came to me in tears. She told me she had been praying for months to heal her relationship with her estranged daughter. Every morning and every night, she would kneel by her bed and beg God to bring her daughter back into her life. She would cry, she would plead, she would promise to be a better mother. And yet, months passed, and her daughter never called. I asked her a simple question: when you pray, how do you feel? She looked at me, confused. I feel desperate, she said. I feel like I'm losing her forever. There, I said, is your answer. You see, this dear woman was not praying from the wish fulfilled. She was praying from the wound. Every time she knelt to pray, she was impressing upon her subconscious mind the feeling of separation, the feeling of loss, the feeling of desperation. And her subconscious, being utterly impersonal, simply continued to create circumstances that matched that feeling. I instructed her to stop praying in that manner immediately. Instead, I told her to sit quietly each night before sleep and imagine a scene that would naturally occur if her relationship with her daughter were already healed. Not a scene of the healing itself, but a scene after the healing had occurred. She chose to imagine her daughter sitting at her kitchen table, laughing over a cup of tea, the way they used to years before. She was to see this vividly, to hear her daughter's laughter, to feel the warmth of the teacup in her hands, to smell the familiar scent of her kitchen. And most importantly, she was to feel the naturalness of it, the ease of it, as if this were simply the way things are. Within 3 weeks, her daughter reached out. The phone rang on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. No celestial fanfare, no dramatic announcement, just a simple call that changed everything. The daughter's voice, tentative at first, carried an emotion the mother recognized instantly, a readiness to heal. They didn't solve decades of pain in that first conversation, but they began. And that beginning was everything. What had shifted? The mother hadn't sent desperate letters or engineered accidental encounters. She hadn't manipulated circumstances or forced outcomes. She had done something far more powerful. She had changed the consciousness from which the situation was viewed. And when consciousness changes, the world has no choice but to reflect that change. You see, most people approach reconciliation or any desired change from a position of lack. They focus on the absence, the wound, the separation, and in doing so, they perpetuate the very condition they wish to transform. They pray from the problem rather than from the solution. They hold the broken relationship in mind so vividly that they reinforce its brokenness at every turn. But this woman had learned a profound secret. Your imagination is not a tool for escaping reality, it is the tool for creating it. When you imagine lovingly, when you dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are not engaging in fantasy or delusion. You are tuning the instrument of your consciousness to a different frequency. And life, being a perfect mirror, must reflect that new frequency back to you. Consider this carefully. Every relationship you have exists first in your consciousness. The difficult colleague, the distant friend, the estranged family member, these are not independent realities imposing themselves upon you. They are outpicturings of states you hold within. Change the inner state, and the outer relationship must shift accordingly. It cannot do otherwise. I've witnessed this principle transform marriages on the brink of collapse, heal business partnerships torn by betrayal, and reunite families separated by years of silence. In each case, the miracle didn't begin with the other person changing. It began with one individual having the courage to imagine differently, to assume the feeling of harmony where discord had been, to dwell in love where resentment had taken root. This is not positive thinking. This is not affirmation without conviction. This is the deliberate occupation of a state of consciousness until that state becomes your natural dwelling place. You see, most people live in what I call a state of reaction. They wake up and immediately react to their circumstances. They react to the news, to the weather, to their bank account, to what someone said to them yesterday. Their entire day becomes a chain reaction of responses to external conditions, and in this reactive state, they wonder why nothing ever changes. But the person who understands this principle operates differently. They wake up and deliberately choose the state they will occupy. Before they check their phone, before they engage with the outer world, they establish their inner world. They claim the feeling of the wish fulfilled. They wear it like a garment. And then, from this established state, they move through their day. Now, here's what most people misunderstand. They think this means ignoring reality or pretending things aren't as they are. That's not what I'm saying at all. You can acknowledge your current circumstances without giving them power over your consciousness. There's a vast difference between observing a fact and making that fact your dwelling place. Let me illustrate this distinction. If you're in debt, you can acknowledge the numbers in your bank account without living in the consciousness of poverty. You can say, yes, these are the current figures, while simultaneously dwelling in the feeling of financial freedom. The fact exists in the outer world, but you refuse to let it establish residency in your inner world. This is perhaps the most sophisticated work you'll ever do. It requires constant vigilance at first, constant awareness of where your attention is dwelling. You must become a watchman at the gates of your own consciousness. And every time your attention wanders back to the old state, to the problem, to the lack, you gently but firmly redirect it to the state of the wish fulfilled. I've watched people struggle with this because they think it should happen automatically. They assume that once they understand the principle, their consciousness will instantly shift. But understanding is not the same as practice. You might understand how to play the piano, but your fingers won't create music until you practice. Similarly, you must practice occupying the desired state until it becomes your natural position. The practice I'm speaking of is not arduous effort or strain. It's the gentle, persistent return to your desired state of consciousness. Think of it as training a puppy. You don't punish it for wandering off. You simply guide it back, again and again, with patience and love. Each time you catch yourself falling back into the old state, you gently redirect your attention to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Many people fail here because they believe practice means forcing themselves to feel something they don't feel. They grit their teeth and try to manufacture emotions. This is not what I'm teaching. The practice is in the assumption itself, in daring to occupy the state as though it were already true. You don't create the feeling through effort, you discover it through assumption. Assume the wish fulfilled, and the feeling will follow naturally, like warmth follows sunlight. Let me give you a practical example. Suppose you desire financial security, yet every time you check your bank account, you feel anxiety. That anxiety is the symptom of dwelling in the state of lack. The practice is this. Before you look at that account, before you pay that bill, before you have that conversation about money, you first assume the feeling of financial security. You ask yourself, how would I feel if I were financially secure? Then you dare to feel that way now, even before circumstances reflect it. This might seem like pretending, And in a sense, it is, but remember, all of reality is imagination pushed out. What you call real now was once imagined by someone. The chair you're sitting in, the device you're using, the very language you're understanding all began as unseen images in consciousness. You're not pretending, you're selecting which state of consciousness to occupy, and therefore which reality to experience. The old state will call to you. It has momentum, habit, familiarity. Your friends might reinforce it with their words. Your circumstances might seem to confirm it. This is the test. This is where your faith is measured, not faith in some external deity, but faith in the creative power of your own consciousness. When everything around you whispers that you are still the old person in the old state, you must have the courage to assume you are already the new. And here's what most people don't realize. This assumption, this act of dwelling in the wish fulfilled, is not passive wishful thinking. It's the most creative act you can perform. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled when you wear it like a second skin throughout your day, you are literally radiating a new frequency. You are broadcasting a signal into the quantum field of infinite possibilities. Think of yourself as a radio station. Your dominant feelings, your habitual assumptions, are the frequency you're transmitting. The world around you can only respond to the station you're playing. If you're broadcasting lack, limitation, and I am not enough, that's the channel the universe tunes into. That's what gets reflected back to you in the mirror of your experience. But the moment you change your inner station, the moment you begin to feel wealthy while your bank account says otherwise, the moment you feel loved while you're physically alone, the moment you feel healthy while symptoms still persist, you've switched the frequency. And here's the profound truth. The outer world has no choice but to reorganize itself to match your inner broadcast. This isn't metaphor. This is mechanism. The same intelligence that grows your hair, heals your cuts without your conscious effort, and keeps your heart beating while you sleep, is the same intelligence that orchestrates the circumstances of your life. And it takes its orders from your dominant feeling, not your wishful thinking, not your occasional affirmations. Your dominant feeling, the state you return to most consistently throughout your day. So when you find yourself tested when the bank statement arrives showing less than you imagined, when the phone doesn't ring with the opportunity you assumed was yours, when the mirror shows the same face you're trying to transcend, this is your moment. This is where spiritual rubber meets the road of reality. You must gently, lovingly return to your assumption. You must close your eyes, even if just for 30 seconds, and feel it real again. Feel the relief. Feel the joy. Feel the naturalness of being the person who already has it. Don't fight the outer facts. Don't wrestle with current conditions. Simply withdraw your attention from what is and place it firmly on what you are assuming to be true. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue with you. It doesn't debate whether your assumption is realistic or unrealistic. It simply accepts the dominant impression you give it and begins to manifest it outwardly. This is why persistence in your assumption is everything. You must return to it again and again, especially when the outer world presents evidence to the contrary. When the bank statement shows lack, when the diagnosis looks grim, when the relationship feels broken, these are precisely the moments when your assumption must become your refuge. I learned this principle not from books alone, but from watching people transform their lives. I've seen the chronically ill assume perfect health and watch their bodies respond. I've seen the financially destitute assume abundance and witness opportunities appear from nowhere. I've seen the lonely assume companionship and suddenly find themselves surrounded by genuine connection. But in every case, the transformation required one thing: the courage to remain faithful to the assumption even when everything visible contradicted it. Let me give you a specific technique. When you face a situation that disturbs you, stop for a moment. Close your eyes if you can. Now, ask yourself, what would I be feeling if this situation were already resolved in my favor? Don't ask how it could be resolved. Don't strategize or plan. Simply feel the feeling of the wish fulfilled. If it's a financial problem, feel the relief of having more than enough. Feel the freedom, the ease, the security. If it's a health challenge, feel the vitality coursing through your body. Feel the strength, the energy, the wellness. If it's a relationship issue, feel the warmth of harmony. Feel the love, the understanding, the peace. Stay with that feeling. Breathe into it. Let it become more real than the problem itself. This is not denial, this is creation. You're not pretending the problem doesn't exist. You're creating the solution from within. The people who fail with this principle are those who practice it half-heartedly. They assume their desire for 5 minutes, then spend the next 23 hours and 55 minutes assuming the opposite. They wonder why nothing changes. Your assumption must become your dwelling place. You must live there mentally. Yes, you'll still take practical action in the outer world, but your actions will flow from your assumption, not from fear or desperation. Live from your assumption, not from your circumstances. This is the secret that separates those who manifest effortlessly from those who struggle and strain. Let me give you a concrete example. Suppose you're assuming the consciousness of financial abundance. You don't wait until your bank account changes to feel abundant. You feel abundant now. When you walk into a store, you don't think, I can't afford this. Even if you don't buy it, your mental posture is one of choice, not limitation. You might think, I could have that, but I don't choose it right now. Do you see the difference? One comes from poverty consciousness, the other from wealth consciousness. Your assumption determines what you notice, what opportunities you see, what ideas come to you, and how others respond to you. When you assume you are prosperous, you begin to think like a prosperous person. You make decisions like a prosperous person. You carry yourself like a prosperous person. And the world, which is simply mirroring your consciousness back to you, begins to treat you like a prosperous person. Now, here's where many people stumble. They try to maintain their assumption while simultaneously preparing for failure. They say affirmations of success while mentally rehearsing disaster. They imagine their wish fulfilled while simultaneously planning what they'll do if it doesn't work out. This is like trying to travel north and south at the same time. You can't do it. You must commit to your assumption fully. Yes, you can have backup plans in the practical world, that's just wisdom. But mentally, emotionally, you must be faithful to your assumption. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot assume you are successful while feeling like a failure. I want you to understand something crucial. Your assumption is not make-believe. When you assume something is true, you are selecting from infinite possible states of consciousness. Each assumption represents a different reality. By dwelling in your desired assumption, you are tuning yourself to that particular frequency of reality. You are aligning with that version of yourself who already has what you desire. This is why persistence in your assumption is so vital. Now, many people ask me, but Joseph, how long must I persist? How long before I see results? And I tell them, this is perhaps the most important thing you will ever understand. The moment you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, it is done. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when the physical evidence appears. Asterisk now. Asterisk. You see, creation is finished. Everything that could ever exist already exists in the infinite possibilities of consciousness. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you're not creating something new, you're selecting from what already is. You're choosing which channel to tune into, which reality to experience. But here's where most people stumble. They assume the feeling for a moment, a day, perhaps even a week. Then, because the physical world hasn't yet rearranged itself to match their assumption, they abandon it. They say, it's not working. And in that very moment of abandonment, they have chosen a different assumption, the assumption of failure, of lack, of limitation. The physical world is always the last to know. It must catch up to your assumption. Think of it like ordering something from across the world. The moment you place the order, it is done. The item is yours. But there is a natural interval between the placement of the order and its arrival at your door. Would you cancel the order simply because it didn't materialize instantly in your hands? This is why I stress persistence, but not the persistence of effort, the persistence of time's assumption asterisk. You don't have to struggle or strain. You simply have to remain faithful to your desired state. Return to it again and again, especially before sleep, when the conscious mind relaxes its grip and the subconscious is most impressionable. I've seen people transform their entire lives, health restored, wealth accumulated, love discovered not through decades of work, but through weeks or months of faithful assumption. One woman came to me, desperate, convinced she would lose her home. I taught her to assume the feeling of financial security every night before sleep. Within weeks, opportunities appeared that seemed miraculous, unexpected payments, new income sources, solutions that weren't there before. The world rearranged itself to match her inner conviction. This is what I mean when I speak of assumption creating reality. It's not that you're merely hoping or wishing. You're occupying the state of consciousness that corresponds to your desire fulfilled. And consciousness, being the only reality, must manifest that state in your outer world. But here's where many stumble. They assume their wish fulfilled for a moment, perhaps even feel wonderful during their meditation or prayer, but the instant they open their eyes, they return to their habitual thinking. They see their bank account and feel poor again. They look in the mirror and feel unworthy again. They interact with difficult people and feel powerless again. This is like planting a seed in the morning and digging it up every afternoon to see if it's growing. You must leave the seed in the ground. You must remain faithful to your assumption even when your physical senses deny it. I often tell people, live in the end. What does this mean? It means you think from your wish fulfilled, not of it. If you desire health, you don't constantly think about being healthy that keeps you separate from it. Instead, you think from the consciousness of a healthy person. You make decisions as a healthy person would. You feel as a healthy person feels. This subtle shift in perspective changes everything. When you think of something, you're looking at it from the outside, acknowledging its absence. When you think from something, you're looking out at the world through its reality. You've claimed it as your identity. I remember counseling a man who desperately wanted to reconcile with his estranged daughter. For years, he had thought of reconciliation, imagining conversations, hoping for phone calls, wishing things were different. Nothing changed because his consciousness remained that of a separated father. I asked him to change his assumption entirely. Instead of thinking of reconciliation, I guided him to think from it. Before sleep, he would imagine his daughter calling him, hearing her voice filled with warmth, feeling the naturalness of their connection. He didn't imagine the healing process or the difficult conversations. He went straight to the end, the relationship restored. He lived in that assumption. When mutual friends mentioned his daughter, he felt the warmth of their restored bond, even though physically they hadn't spoken. When tempted to feel rejected, he returned to his assumption. He was faithful to the invisible reality he had constructed in consciousness. And here's what happens when you persist in that faithfulness. The outer world must eventually conform. It has no choice. The law is impersonal and exact. This man's daughter, after weeks of his internal revision, reached out. She called him. The conversation was warm, open, and healing. She said she'd been thinking about him constantly, that something had shifted in her heart, that she missed him and wanted to rebuild their relationship. Now, he could have said, well, she just needed time. But he knew better. He understood that her change of heart wasn't independent of his inner work. It was the direct result of it. He had changed the cause, and the effect had no choice but to follow. This is the mystery I'm inviting you to embrace. When you assume a state and persist in it despite contradictory evidence, you are literally rewriting the story from the inside out. You're not hoping for change. You're not wishing for it. You're generating it from the unseen realm where all things originate. But let me give you another angle on this, because I know some of you are thinking, Joseph, this sounds like I'm manipulating people. I'm uncomfortable with that. Listen carefully. You are not manipulating anyone. You cannot force anyone to act against their true nature or free will. What you're doing is removing the barriers within yourself that were keeping the natural flow of love, abundance, and harmony from expressing. You're changing your concept of the person, and in doing so, you're encountering a different version of them, the version that was always there, but obscured by your own limiting assumptions. Think of it this way. If I believe you are hostile toward me, I will unconsciously emit signals in my tone, my body language, my words that provoke hostility in you. My assumption creates the very reality I fear. But if I revise that assumption and imagine you as friendly and supportive, I change the signal I'm broadcasting. And you, responding to that new signal, show up differently. I'm not controlling you. I'm creating the conditions for your higher nature to emerge. This is why revision is not manipulation, it's liberation. You're freeing yourself from false beliefs, and in doing so, you're freeing others to be the best version of themselves in relation to you. Now, here's where this gets truly transformative, and I need you to really hear this, because it's going to change how you approach every relationship, every conflict, every moment of frustration in your life. Most people, when they practice revision, they do it once, maybe twice. They revise a difficult conversation, they feel better for a moment, and then they move on. And then they wonder why nothing changes. They wonder why the same patterns keep repeating, why the same people keep disappointing them, why their reality seems stuck in place. Here's what they don't understand. Revision isn't a one-time event. It's a practice. It's a discipline. It's something you return to again and again until the new impression is so deeply rooted in your consciousness that it becomes your automatic response to that memory. Think of it like this. Imagine you've walked the same path through a field every day for years. There's a deep groove in the earth where your feet have worn away the grass. Now you decide to walk a different path. Do you think one walk on the new path is going to erase years of the old one? Of course not. You have to walk the new path consistently, repeatedly, until it becomes as familiar as the old one, until your feet naturally find their way there without thinking. This is what we're doing with revision. We're creating a new neural pathway, a new habitual thought pattern, and that requires repetition. Not mindless repetition, conscious, deliberate, feeling-filled repetition. So when you revise that argument with your spouse, don't just do it once, return to it. Relive that revised version again tonight. And tomorrow night, keep returning to it until when you think of that interaction, the revised version is what comes to mind first. Until the emotional charge from the original event has completely dissolved. And here's something beautiful that happens when you practice this way. You begin to catch yourself in real time. You'll be in the middle of a tense conversation, and suddenly you'll feel yourself stepping back, observing, choosing differently in the moment. Because you've trained your consciousness to respond differently. You've rehearsed a higher version of yourself so many times in imagination that it becomes your natural state. This is the foundation of lasting transformation. Not positive thinking as a desperate cover-up, but imagination as a precise instrument of change. You're not trying to pretend away your problems. You're rebuilding the very architecture of your consciousness from the inside out. And here's what most people miss entirely. This work doesn't happen in addition to your life. It doesn't require you to carve out hours of meditation or retreat from the world. It happens in the gaps, in those moments between activities, in the 30 seconds before you fall asleep, in the pause before you respond to that email, in the breath you take before walking into a room. These are the golden moments. These are the cracks where transformation seeps in. I've watched people revolutionize their entire existence with nothing more than 5 minutes of deliberate imagination before sleep. Because that's when your conscious mind releases its grip. That's when your subconscious is most receptive, most impressionable, most willing to accept a new pattern as truth. You lie there in bed, not rehashing the day's frustrations or tomorrow's anxieties, but living from the end result. You feel yourself already in possession of what you desire. You don't see yourself getting it. You see from the perspective of already having it. This distinction is everything. If you want financial freedom, you don't imagine receiving a check. You imagine the feeling of complete security, the ease of making decisions without financial constraint, the naturalness of abundance in your life. You feel it as present tense reality. You steep yourself in that feeling until it saturates your consciousness. If you want a healed relationship, you don't imagine the apology or the conversation that fixes everything. You imagine the feeling of mutual respect already established, the warmth already present, the understanding already flowing naturally between you. You live in the end result until that result feels more real than your current circumstances. And then you release it. You don't clutch at it desperately. You don't check every day to see if it's manifesting yet. You trust the process you've set in motion. You've planted the seed in the only soil that matters, your own consciousness. Now you let it grow. This is faith, not belief in external saviors or magical thinking, but absolute confidence in the creative power of your own imagination. You've impressed your subconscious with a new pattern, and you trust that it will outpicture in your experience. This is why sleep is so sacred in this practice. When you drift into that drowsy state between waking and sleeping, your conscious mind relaxes its grip. The critical faculty that says this isn't real or this is impossible loosens its hold. In that liminal space, your subconscious becomes extraordinarily receptive to suggestion. I've instructed countless people to use this twilight zone deliberately. As you lie in bed at night, feeling yourself beginning to slip towards sleep, repeat your affirmation gently, but more powerfully. Feel the reality of your wish fulfilled. If you're seeking health, feel the vitality coursing through your body. If you're seeking love, feel the warmth of being cherished. If you're seeking abundance, feel the security and freedom it brings. Don't force it, don't strain. Simply assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled as you drift off to sleep. Your subconscious will work on this impression throughout the night, and you'll be amazed at how circumstances begin to conform to your inner conviction. The same principle applies when you first awaken in the morning. Before you fully engage your rational mind, before you check your phone or start planning your day, spend a few moments dwelling in the feeling of your desire fulfilled. These are golden moments when your subconscious is still accessible, still impressionable. Think of your subconscious mind as a garden. You are the gardener. Every thought, every feeling, every mental image is a seed you plant. The subconscious doesn't judge which seeds are good or bad, it simply grows whatever you plant. If you plant seeds of lack, limitation, and fear, that's what will grow in your experience. If you plant seeds of abundance, health, and joy, those will flourish instead. Most people are unconscious gardeners. They throw seeds randomly, without intention, and then wonder why their garden is full of weeds. They worry about bills and impress poverty upon their subconscious. They rehearse arguments and impress conflict. They imagine worst-case scenarios and impress disaster. Then they ask, why does my life look like this? You must become a conscious gardener. You must choose deliberately what you will plant in the fertile soil of your subconscious mind. This requires vigilance at first, yes. It requires catching yourself when you slip into old patterns of negative thinking, but with practice, it becomes second nature. Think of it this way. When you first learned to drive, every action required conscious thought. Check the mirrors, press the clutch, shift gears, signal before turning. It was exhausting, wasn't it? But now, if you've been driving for years, you do all of this without thinking. Your subconscious mind has taken over these patterns. The same transformation happens with your mental habits. At first, choosing positive thoughts over negative ones feels forced, unnatural. You catch yourself worrying and have to consciously redirect your mind. You notice yourself complaining and have to deliberately shift to gratitude. But gradually, imperceptibly, these new patterns sink deeper. They become your default mode of thinking. I've watched this transformation in countless individuals. They come to me trapped in cycles of negative thinking, convinced that their minds are beyond their control. This is just who I am. They tell me. I've always been a worrier. I've always been pessimistic, but there's no such thing as just who you are when it comes to thought patterns. There's only who you've practiced being. And here's the beautiful truth. You can practice being someone new. You can rehearse a different version of yourself in your mind until that version becomes your reality. This is why I encourage you to use your imagination so deliberately, so purposefully. Your imagination is the workshop of your mind. It's where everything in your life is first constructed before it appears in your external world. Every invention, every achievement, every relationship first existed as an imagined possibility. When you imagine yourself healthy, you're not engaging in fantasy. You're not denying reality or escaping into delusion. You're creating a mental blueprint that your subconscious mind will work tirelessly to manifest. You're giving your deeper mind clear instructions about what to build. The subconscious doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. This has been demonstrated time and again. Athletes who mentally rehearse their performance show nearly the same neural activation as those who physically practice. Your body responds to imagined scenarios as if they were happening. So when you spend time each day imagining yourself living in the reality you desire, you're not wasting time. You're doing the most productive work possible. You're impressing new patterns onto your subconscious mind. You're literally rewiring your brain. And here's what happens during those quiet hours. Your subconscious mind takes these new instructions and begins to manifest them into your physical reality. It works through the night, coordinating circumstances, arranging meetings, attracting opportunities, guiding your intuition. When you wake up in the morning, you often find that solutions have appeared, that clarity has emerged, that the path forward has become obvious. I've watched this pattern repeat itself thousands of times. A man impresses his subconscious mind with images of success before sleep. Within days, he meets someone who offers him exactly the opportunity he needs. A woman affirms her perfect health each night. Within weeks, her body begins to heal in ways that baffle her doctors. These aren't coincidences. This is law. This is the subconscious mind fulfilling the instructions it has been given. Now, let me address something that troubles many people who begin this practice. They say to me, Joseph, I've been doing this for 3 days now, and nothing has changed. I still wake up feeling anxious. I still face the same problems. Maybe this doesn't work for me. To these people, I say this with all the love in my heart. 3 days is nothing. You've spent perhaps 20, 30, 40 years or more programming your subconscious mind with fear, with limitation, with unworthiness. You've impressed these patterns deeply through repetition, through emotional intensity, through constant reinforcement. And now you expect 3 bedtime affirmations to undo all of that? Be reasonable. Be patient. Be persistent. When you plant a seed in the garden, you don't dig it up the next morning to see if it's growing. You water it, you give it sunlight, you protect it, you trust the process. And in time, that seed breaks open, sends down roots, pushes up through the soil, and becomes a magnificent plant. Your subconscious mind operates by the same principle. You plant the seed through your nighttime practice. You water it with repetition. You give it the sunlight of your faith, and you must trust that beneath the surface, in the invisible realm of mind, growth is happening. I always tell people, give any mental practice at least 21 days before you evaluate its effectiveness. Why? Because research has shown that it takes approximately 3 weeks to establish a new neural pathway in the brain. You're literally creating new connections between neurons. This doesn't happen instantly. It requires consistent, repeated effort. Think of it like learning to play an instrument. The first time you try to play a chord on a guitar, your fingers don't know where to go. It feels awkward, uncomfortable, even impossible. But you practice. Day after day, you position your fingers on the frets. At first, it takes conscious effort. You have to think about every movement, but then something remarkable happens. After weeks of practice, your fingers start finding the right positions automatically. You don't have to think about it anymore. The neural pathways have been carved so deeply that the action becomes second nature. That's exactly what happens when you reprogram your subconscious mind. Your limiting beliefs didn't form overnight, and they won't disappear overnight either. They were installed through years of repetition, reinforced by countless experiences and emotions. Now you're installing new beliefs, and that process also requires repetition. This is why people fail. They try something for a few days, don't see immediate results, and conclude it doesn't work. They're expecting microwave results from a slow cooker process. Transformation doesn't happen on your timeline. It happens on nature's timeline. But here's the encouraging part. While the process takes time, it's not complicated. You don't need special equipment. You don't need expensive seminars. You don't need a guru standing over you. You simply need consistency and faith in the process. Every morning and every night, you feed your subconscious mind new instructions. You do this through visualization, affirmation, and feeling. These aren't mystical practices reserved for spiritual masters. These are practical tools that work because of how your brain is designed. When you visualize yourself succeeding, when you feel the emotions of already having what you desire, when you affirm with conviction that it's already yours, you're sending clear signals to your subconscious. You're saying, this is the new reality. Accept this as true. Your subconscious doesn't judge or question. It simply accepts and acts on whatever you consistently feed it. That's both the danger and the opportunity. Feed it fear and limitation long enough, and it manifests those conditions. Feed it confidence and possibility, and it manifests those instead. Which brings us to a practical truth most people discover too late in life. You cannot afford to be casual about what you mentally consume. You cannot be indifferent to the conversations you participate in, the media you absorb, the internal dialogue you permit to run unchecked through your mind, because every single input is instruction. Every complaint is programming. Every worry is a blueprint being sent to the creative mechanism within you. I've watched people sabotage their entire futures through nothing more than habitual negativity, not through lack of talent or opportunity, but through the cumulative effect of toxic mental habits reinforced thousands of times. They say things like, I'm just being realistic, or I'm naturally pessimistic, but there's nothing natural about it. Pessimism isn't realism. It's simply one interpretation of reality, and often the least useful one. Because here's what actually happens. When you interpret events negatively, you activate the part of your nervous system that prepares for threat. Your body tenses. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your perception narrows. You literally become less capable of seeing solutions that might be right in front of you. The pessimist looks at this physiological response and says, see, I was right to worry. But they've reversed cause and effect. The worry created the limitation, not the other way around. Meanwhile, the person who maintains a constructive mental attitude in the face of the same circumstances activates entirely different neurological pathways. They remain calm, resourceful, open to possibility. They see